bewildering her husband in different ways and bringing him under her control. The wife of King Puranjana gave him all satisfaction and enjoyed sex life. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. After hunting in the forest, King Puranjana returned home, and after refreshing himself by taking a bath and eating nice food, he searched for his wife. When he saw her lying down on the ground without a bed, as if neglected and devoid of proper dress, he became very much aggrieved. He then became attracted to her and began to enjoy her company. A living entity is similarly engaged in the material world in sinful activities. These sinful activities may be compared to King Puranjana's hunting in the forest. A sinful life can be counteracted by various processes of religion, such as yajna, vrata, and dana. That is, the performance of sacrifices, which is yajna, the taking of vow for some religious ritual, and giving of charity. In this way, one may become free from the reactions of sinful life and at the same time awaken his original Krishna consciousness. By coming home, taking his bath, eating nice foodstuffs, getting refreshed, and searching out his wife, King Puranjana came to his good consciousness in his family life. In other words, a systematic family life is enjoyed in the Vedas. It's better than an irresponsible, sinful life. If a husband and wife combine together in Krishna consciousness and live together peacefully, that is very nice. However, if a husband becomes too much attracted by his wife and forgets his duty in life, the implications of materialistic life will again resume. Sri Rupa Goswami has therefore recommended Anasaktasya Vishayan, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1, 2, 255, without being attached by sex. The husband and wife may live together for the advancement of spiritual life. The husband should engage in devotional service, and the wife should be faithful and religious according to Vedic injunctions. Such a combination is very good. However, if the husband becomes too much attracted to the wife due to sex, the position becomes very dangerous. Women in general are very much sexually inclined. Indeed, it is said that a woman's sex desire is 9 times stronger than a man's. It is therefore man's duty to keep a woman under his control by satisfying her, giving her ornaments, nice food and clothes, and engaging her in religious activities. Of course, a woman should have a few children, and in this way not be disturbing to the man. Unfortunately, if the man becomes attracted to the woman simply for sex enjoyment, then family life becomes abominable. The great politician Chanakya Pandit has said, Varya Rupavati Satru, a beautiful wife is an enemy. Of course, every woman in the eyes of her husband is very beautiful. Others may see her as not very beautiful, but the husband, being very much attracted to her, sees her always as very beautiful. If the husband sees the wife as very beautiful, it is to be assumed that he is too much attracted to her. This attraction is the attraction of sex. The whole world is captivated by the two modes of material nature, Rajaguna and Tamaguna, passion and ignorance. Generally, women are very much passionate and are less intelligent. Therefore, somehow or other, a man should not be under the control of their passion and ignorance. By performing bhakti yoga or devotional service, a man can be raised to the platform of goodness. If a husband situated in the mode of goodness can control his wife, who is in passion and ignorance, the woman is benefited. Forgetting her natural inclination for passion and ignorance, the woman becomes obedient and faithful to her husband, who is situated in goodness. Such a life becomes very welcome. The intelligence of the man and woman may then work very nicely together, and they can make a progressive march towards spiritual realization. Otherwise, the husband, coming under the control of the wife, sacrifices his quality of goodness and becomes a subservient to the qualities of passion and ignorance. In this way, the whole situation becomes polluted. The conclusion is that a household life is better than a sinful life devoid of responsibility. But if in the household life, the husband becomes subordinate to the wife, involvement in materialistic life again becomes prominent. In this way, a man's material bondage becomes enhanced. Because of this, according to the Vedic system, after a certain age, a man is recommended to abandon his family life for the stages of vanaprastha and sannyasa. Well, yeah, this is correct statements. Uh, Sometimes men do take sannyas uh, even at an early age and avoid getting married and remaining celibate their whole life. Or someone may get married but still maintains their uh, uh, mind and senses and does not indulge in unnecessary sex enjoyment. Such a person is also a vanaprastha or a sannyasi, even in family life. So everything depends on the ability to control the mind and senses. And if a man can control his mind and senses, he's not victimized by engaging in illicit activities. If he can't control his mind and senses, he's going to have trouble his whole life. Text 2. The queen took her bath and dressed herself nicely with all auspicious garments and ornaments. After taking food and becoming completely satisfied, she returned to the king. Upon seeing her beautifully decorated, attractive face, the king welcomed her with all devotion Purport by Srila Prabhupada. A woman is generally accustomed to dress herself nicely with fine garments and decorative ornaments. She may even sometimes wear flowers in her hair. Women especially dress themselves up in the evening because the husband comes home in the evening after working hard all day. It is the duty of the wife to dress herself up very nicely so that when her husband returns home, he becomes attracted by her dress and cleanliness and thus becomes satisfied. In other words, the wife is the inspiration of all good intelligence. Upon seeing one's wife dressed nicely, one can think very soberly about family business. When a person is too anxious about family affairs, he cannot discharge his family duties nicely. A wife is therefore supposed to be an inspiration and should keep the husband's intelligence in good order so that they can combinedly prosecute the affairs of family life without impediment. Very good explanation of how to have a happy and peaceful life. Text 3. Queen Puranjana embraced the king, and the king also responded by embracing her shoulders. In this way, in a solitary place, they enjoyed joking words. Thus, King Puranjana became very much captivated by his beautiful wife and deviated from his good sense. He forgot that the passing of days and nights means that his span of life was being reduced without profit. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word pramada in the verse is very significant. A beautiful wife is certainly enlivening to her husband, but at the same time is the cause of degradation. The word pramada means enlivening, as well as maddening. Generally, a householder does not take the passing of days and nights very seriously. A person in ignorance takes it as the usual course that days come and after the days, the nights come. This is the law of material nature. But a man in ignorance does not know that when the sun rises early in the morning, it begins to take away the balance of his life. Thus, day after day, the span of one's life is reduced. Forgetting the duty of human life, the foolish man simply remains in the company of his wife and enjoys her in a secluded place. Such a condition is called aprakrishta chaitana, or degraded consciousness. Human consciousness should be used for elevation to Krishna consciousness. But when a person is too much attracted to his wife and family affairs, he does not take Krishna consciousness very seriously. He thus becomes degraded, not knowing that he cannot buy back even a second of his life in return for millions of dollars. The greatest loss in life is passing time without understanding Krishna. Let me read that again. The greatest loss in life is passing time without understanding Krishna. Every moment of our lives should be utilized properly, and the proper use of life is to increase devotional service to the Lord. Without devotional service to the Lord, the activities of life become simply a waste of time. Shama eva hi kevalam. Simply by becoming dutiful, we do not make any profit in life. As confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.8, Dharma sunastita pumsa vishvakshena katasuya not padayed yadi ratim shama eva hi kevalam. If, after performing one's occupational duty very perfectly, one does not make progress in Krishna consciousness, it should be understood that he has simply wasted his time in valueless labor. Wow. Text number 4. In this way, increasingly overwhelmed by illusion, King Puranjana, although advanced in consciousness, remained always lying down with his head on a pillow of his wife's arms. In this way, he considered woman to be his ultimate life and soul. Becoming thus overwhelmed by the mode of ignorance, he could not understand the meaning of self-realization, of his self or of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Human life, purport by Srila Prabhupada. Human life is meant for self-realization. First of all, one has to realize his own self, which is described in this verse as nijam. Then he has to understand or realize the super soul or Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, when one becomes too much materially attached, he takes a woman to be everything. This is the basic principle of material attachment. And in such a conditioned state, one cannot realize his own self or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.2, it is therefore said, Mahat Sevam Dwaram Ahur Vimuktes Tamo Dwaram Yositam Sangi Sangam. If one associates with Mahatmas or devotees, his path of liberation is opened. But if one becomes too much attached to women or persons who are also attached to women, that is, attached to women directly or indirectly, he opens the Tamo Dwaram, the door of the darkest region of hellish life. Well, it's not only associating with women, it's associating with persons who are also attached to women, either attached to women directly or indirectly. It opens the Tamo Dwaram, the door to the darkest region of hellish life. King Puranjana was a great soul, highly intellectual and possessed of advanced consciousness. But due to his being too much addicted to women, his whole consciousness was covered. In the modern age, the consciousness of people is too much covered by wine, women, and flesh. Consequently, people are completely unable to make any progress in self-realization. The first step of self-realization is to know oneself as spirit soul apart from the body. the second stage of self-realization, one comes to know that every soul, every individual living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Soul, Paramatma, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 15.7. Mamaevam so jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manaksastan indriyani prakriti karsati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. All living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Unfortunately, in this present civilization, both men and women are allowed to be attracted to one another from the very beginning of life. And because of this, they are completely unable to come to the platform of self-realization. They do not know that without self-realization, they suffer the greatest loss in the human form of life. Thinking of a woman always within one's heart is tantamount to lying down with a woman on a valuable bedstead. So in other words, just thinking about enjoying with a woman is the same as actually engaging in sex with a woman. The heart is the bedstead and is the most valuable bedstead. When a man thinks of women and money, he lies down and rests on the arms of his beloved wife, a woman or wife. In this way, he overindulges in sex life and thus becomes unfit for self-realization. Well, as soon as one engages in unnecessary sex, he becomes unfit for self-realization. Sex is only for procreation and nothing else. If we don't understand that, then we become victims of Maya. Text 5. My dear King Parsinabar Isat. In this way, King Puranjan, with his heart full of lust and sinful reactions, began to enjoy sex with his wife. And in this way, his new life and youth expired in half a moment. Well, if one is wasting their semen and letting it drop in sex life, they do actually, they have the consequence of not being very healthy and also limiting their lifespan. Purport. Srila Govinda Dasa Thakura has sung, E Dana Yovana Putra Parijana, Ite ki ache paratiti re, Kamala Dala Jala Jivana Talamala, Bajaham Haripada Niti Re. In this verse, Srila Govinda Dasa actually says that there is no bliss in the enjoyment of youthful life. In youth, a person becomes very lusty to enjoy all kinds of sense objects. The sense objects are form, taste, smell, touch, and sound. The modern scientific methods or advancement of scientific civilization encourages the enjoyment of these five senses: form, taste, smell, touch, and sound. The younger generation is very pleased to see a beautiful form, to hear radio messages of material news and sense gratificatory songs, to smell nice scents, nice flowers, and to touch the soft body or breasts of a young woman, and gradually touch the sex organs. All of this is very pleasing to the animals. Therefore, in human society, there are restrictions in the enjoyment of the five sense objects. Sorry. If one does not follow, he becomes exactly like a animal. Well, we do have a lot of two-legged animals today. Thus, in this verse is specifically stated, Kama Kasmala Chetasa. The consciousness of King Puranjana was polluted by lusty desires and sinful activities. In the previous verse, it is stated that Puranjana, although advanced in consciousness, lay down on a very soft bed with his wife. This indicates that he indulged too much in sex. The words navam vaya are also significant in this verse. They indicate the period of youth from age 16 to 30. These 13 or 15 years of life are years in which one can very strongly enjoy the senses. When one comes to this age, he thinks that his life will go on and that he will simply continue enjoying his senses. But time and tide wait for no man. Very important proverb. Time and tide wait for no man. The span of youth expires very quickly. One who wastes his life simply by committing sinful activities in youth immediately becomes disappointed and disillusioned. When the brief period of youth is over, the material enjoyments of youth are especially pleasing to a person who has no spiritual training. If one is trained only according to the bodily conception of life, he simply leads a disappointed life because bodily sense enjoyment finishes within 40 years or so. After 40 years, one simply leads a disillusioned life because he has no spiritual knowledge. For such a person, the expiration of youth occurs in half a moment. Thus, King Puranjana's pleasure, which he took in lying down with his wife, expired very quickly. Kamakasmala Chetasa also indicates that unrestricted sense enjoyment is not allowed in the human form of life by the laws of nature. Hey, is any of this taught to kids? I don't think so. You're only going to hear this in the Srimad Bhagavatam. You know, this is giving so much information about the pitfalls of material sex life. And it is very, very necessary for kids to understand these things. If one enjoys his senses unrestrictedly, he leads a sinful life. The animals do not violate the laws of nature. For example, the sex impulse in animals is very strong during certain months of the year. The lion is very powerful. He has a flesh He is a flesh eater and is very strong, but he enjoys sex only once in a year. Similarly, according to religious injunctions, a man is restricted to enjoy sex only once a month after the menstrual period of the wife. And if the wife is pregnant, he is not allowed sex life at all. That is the law for human beings. A man is allowed to keep more than one wife because he cannot enjoy sex when the wife is pregnant. If he wants to enjoy sex at such time, he may go to another wife who is not pregnant. These are the laws mentioned in the Manu Samhita and other scriptures. Okay, so polygamy is recommended in the Manu Samhita. In Christianity, polygamy is not recommended. But here, it's in the Manu Samhita, polygamy is recommended or is permitted. Let's not say it's recommended, but it is permitted. These laws and scriptures are meant for human beings. As such, if one violates these laws, he becomes sinful. The conclusion is that unrestricted sense enjoyment means sinful life. Okay, that's completely true. Illicit sex is sex that violates the laws given in the scriptures. When one violates the laws of the scriptures or the Vedas, he commits sinful activities. One who is engaged in sinful activities cannot change his consciousness. Oh, that's very dangerous. Our real function is to change our consciousness from kasmala, sinful consciousness, to Krishna, the supreme pure. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram Paramam Bhavan. Krishna is the supreme pure, and if we change our consciousness from material enjoyment to Krishna, we become purified. This is the process recommended by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the process of Chetu Darpana Marjanam, cleansing the mirror of the heart. Text number 6. 1 second. The great sage Narada then addressed King Parsinabhadisa. O one whose lifespan is great, or Virat. In this way, King Puranjana begot 1,100 sons within the womb of his wife. Wow, look how powerful he was. Puranjana, however, in this business, he passed away half of his lifespan. That's what happens when you engage in too much sex life. In this verse, there are several significant words, the first of which are Ekadasa Satane. Puranjan had begotten 1,100 sons within the womb of his wife, and thus passed away half of his life. Actually, every man follows a similar process. If one lives for 100 years at the utmost, in his family life, he simply begets children up to the age of 50. Unfortunately, at the present moment, people do not live even 100 years. Nonetheless, they beget children up to the age of 60. Another point is that formerly, people used to beget 100 to 200 sons and daughters, as will be evident in the next verse. King Paranjana not only begot 1,100 sons, but also 110 daughters. At the present moment, no one can produce such huge quantities of children. Instead, mankind is very busy checking the increase of population by contraceptive methods. Whoa, that is evil, actually. Contraceptive methods, or let's just say it's very sinful. We do not find in Vedic literatures that they ever used contraceptive methods, although they were begetting hundreds of children. Checking population by contraceptive method is another sinful activity. But in this age of Kali, people have become so sinful that they do not care for the resultant reactions of their sinful lives. King Puranjana lay down with his wife Puranjani and begot a large number of children. And there is no mention in these verses that he used contraceptive methods. Okay, well, it's going to definitely say that contraceptive methods are actually very sinful. According to the Vedic scriptures, the contraceptive method should be restraint in sex life. It is not that one should indulge in unrestricted sex life and avoid children by using some method to check pregnancy. There it is. If a man is in good consciousness, he consults with his religious wife, and as a result of his consultation with intelligence, one advances in his ability to estimate the value of life. In other words, if one is fortunate enough to have a good, conscientious wife, he can decide by mutual consultation that human life is meant for advancing in Krishna consciousness and not for begetting a large number of children. Children are called parinama, or byproducts, and when one consults his good intelligence, he can see that his byproducts should be the expansion of his Krishna consciousness. Yeah, in other words, it's not recommended to have a large number of children. Maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 children. Going past that number, one becomes entangled too much. Text 7. O Prajapati, King Parsinavadisa. In this way, King Paranjana also begot 110 daughters. So he has 1,100 sons, and he also has 110 daughters. All of these were equally glorified like the father and mother. Their behavior was gentle, and they possessed magnanimity and other good qualities. Magnanimity means acting with good sense, being very generous, as well as being very conscious of not hurting anyone. Purport: children begotten under the rules and regulations of the scriptures generally become as good as the father and mother. But children born illegitimately mainly become Varna Sankara. The Varna Sankara population is irresponsible to the family, community, and even to themselves. Formerly, the Varna Sankara population was checked by the observation of the reformatory method called Garbhodana Samskara, a child beginning religious ceremony. Yeah, this is supposed to be performed before engaging in sex life to have a child. The Garbhodana Samskara. In this verse, we find that although King Puranjana had begotten so many children, they were not Varna Sankara. All of them were good, well behaved children, and they had good qualities like their father and mother. Even though we may produce many good children, our desire for sex that is beyond the prescribed method is to be considered sinful. Too much enjoyment of any of the senses, not only sex, results in sinful activities. Okay, well, that's a very big statement. Let's read that again. Even though we may produce many good children, our desire for sex that is beyond the prescribed method is to be considered sinful. Too much enjoyment of any of the senses, not only sex, results in sinful activities. Therefore, one has to become a Swami or Goswami at the end of his life. One may beget children up to the age of 50, but after 50, one must stop begetting children and should accept the Vanaprastha order. In this way, he must leave home and then become a sannyasi. A sannyasi title is Swami or Goswami, which means that he completely refrains from sense enjoyment. Okay, now I have a question here myself. If one can continue to have children up to the age of 50, how is he going to take care of those children? And how is he going to uh, engage in spiritual activities if he's having sex up to 50 years old? No, it's much more, let's say, in my opinion, recommended to stop sexual activity by the time you're uh, 40 years old, I think, or even less. If you keep going, it just means that there's more years that you have to take care of the children and the wife. You know? Anyway, this is what it says here. One may beget children up to the age of 50, but after 50, one must stop begetting children and should accept the Vanaprastha order. In this way, he must leave home and then become a sannyasi. The sannyasi title is Swami or Goswami, which means that he completely refrains from sense enjoyment. One should not accept the sannyasa order whimsically. He must be fully confident that he can restrain his desires for sense gratification. King Puranjana's family life was, of course, very happy. Everyone desires to have more sons than daughters. And since the number of daughters was less than the number of sons, it appears that King Puranjana's family life was very comfortable and pleasing. Now, he had more daughters than boys. That means he had more sex. After this, text 8, after this, King Puranjana, king of the Panchala country, in order to increase the descendants of his paternal family, married his sons with qualified wives, and married his daughters with qualified husbands. Well, that's good. According to the Vedic system, everyone should marry. Well, there it is. Everyone should marry. One has to accept a wife because a wife will produce children. And the children, in their turn, will offer foodstuffs and funeral ceremonies so that the forefathers, wherever they may live, will be made happy. The offering of oblations in the name of Lord Vishnu is called Pindodaka, and it is necessary that the descendants of a family offer Pinda to the forefathers. Yeah, at least once a year, they should perform the Pinda ceremony of offering foodstuffs uh, to the relatives that have died. Not only was Puranjana king of Panchala satisfied in his own sex life, but he arranged for the sex life of his 1,100 sons and 110 daughters. In this way, one can elevate an aristocratic family to the platform of a dynasty. Well, a dynasty means that there are many, many generations of this family. It is significant in this verse that Puranjana got both sons and daughters married. It is the duty of a father and mother to arrange for the marriage of their sons and daughters. That is the obligation in Vedic society. Sons and daughters should not be allowed freedom to intermingle with the opposite sex unless they are married. This Vedic social organization is very good in that it stops the promulgation of illicit sex life or Varna Sankara, which appears under different names in this present day. Unfortunately, in this age, although the father and mother are anxious to get their children married, the children refuse to get married by the arrangement of the parents. Consequently, the number of Varna Sankara has increased throughout the world under different names. So Varna Sankara means illicit sex, and therefore children are born that are not properly taken care of. Text number 9. Of these many sons, each produced hundreds and hundreds of grandsons. In this way, the whole city of Panchala became overcrowded by these sons and grandsons of King Puranjana. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. We must remember that Puranjana is the living entity, and the city, Panchala, is the body. The body is the field of activity for the living entity. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Chetragya. There are two constituents. One is the living entity, which is Chetragya, and the other is the body of the living entity, Chetra. Any living entity can know that he is covered by the body if he only contemplates the body a little bit. Just with a little contemplation, he can come to understand that the body is his possession. One can understand this by practical experience and by the authority of the Shastras. In Bhagavad Gita 2.13, it is said, Ehinosmin yata dehe. The proprietor of the body, the soul, is within the body. The body is taken as the Panchala Desha, or the field of activities, wherein the living entity can enjoy senses in their relationship to the five sense objects, namely Gandha, Rasa, Rupa, Sparsa, Sabda. That is, sense objects made of earth, water, fire, air, and sky. One second. Within this material world, covered by the material body of subtle and gross matter, every living entity creates actions and reactions, which are herein known allegorically as sons and grandsons. There are two kinds of actions and reactions, namely pious and impious. In this way, our material existence becomes coded by different actions and reactions. In this regard, Srila Narottam Das Thakur states, Karma Kanda Jnana Kanda Kevala Vishirabandha Amrita Balya Yeva Kaya Nana Yoni Sada Pire Kadarya Bhakshana Kare Tara Janma Adha Pate Yaya. Fruitive activities and mental speculation are simply cups of poison. Whoever drinks of them, thinking them to be nectar, must struggle very hard, life after life, in different types of bodies. Such a person eats all kinds of nonsense and becomes condemned by his activities of so-called sense enjoyment. Thus, the field of action and reactions by which one's descendants are increased begins with sex life. Puranjana increased his whole family by begetting sons, who in their turn begot grandsons. Thus, the living entity, being inclined towards sexual gratification, becomes involved in many hundreds and thousands of actions and reactions. In this way, he remains within the material world simply for the purpose of sense gratification and transmigrates from one body to another. His process of reproducing so many sons and grandsons results in so-called societies, nations, communities, and so on. All these communities, societies, dynasties, and nations simply expand from sex life. As stated by Prahlad Maharaja, Yan Maitunadi Grihamedi Sukam Hi Tutcham. Bhagavatam 7.9.45. A Grihamedi is one who wants to remain within this material existence. This means that he wants to remain within this body or society and enjoy friendship, love, and community. His only enjoyment is increasing the number of sex enjoyers. He enjoys sex and produces children, who in their turn marry and produce grandchildren. The grandchildren also marry and in their turn produce great grandchildren. In this way, the entire earth becomes overpopulated. Wow. And then suddenly there are reactions provoked by material nature in the form of war, famine, pestilence, and earthquakes, etc. Thus, the entire population is again extinguished, simply to be recreated. This process is explained in Bhagavad Gita 8.19 as repeated creation and annihilation. Bhutva bhutva paliyate. Due to a lack of Krishna consciousness, all the creation and annihilation is going on under the name of human civilization. This cycle continues due to man's lack of knowledge of the soul and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Wow. Okay, my dear devotees, this is heavy duty knowledge. We have to be very, very careful and circumspect or uh, to fix our mind to having a organized spiritual life, following very carefully the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness, and not becoming exorbitant or let's say, sense gratifier, rather to control the senses and use them in the service of Krishna. If we use our senses in the service of Krishna, we will not become victims of Maya. If we use our senses for our own sense gratification, we become victimized by ourselves and endeavor in so much useless activities. And in the end, we have nothing, nothing of value. So many people end up with a life of no value at all. Okay, we'll go to text 10 and then we'll stop. These sons and grandsons were virtually plunderers of King Puranjana's riches, including his home, treasury, servants, secretaries, and all other paraphernalia. Puranjana's attachment for these things was very deep rooted. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, the word Rikta Haresu, meaning plunderers of wealth, is very significant. One's sons, grandsons, and other descendants are ultimately plunderers of one's accumulated wealth. There are many celebrated businessmen and industrialists who produce great wealth and are highly praised by the public, but all their money is ultimately plundered by their sons and grandsons. In India, we have actually seen one industrialist who, like King Puranjana, was very much sexually inclined and had a half dozen wives. Wow. 6 wives. A dime a dozen. Each of these wives had a separate establishment that necessitated the expenditure of several thousands of rupees. Oh, this is a real person now we're talking about. When I was engaged in talking with him, this is Prabhupada's personal experience, I saw that he was very busy trying to secure money so that all his sons and daughters would get at least 500,000 rupees each. Thus, such industrialists, businessmen, or karmis are called mudas in the Shastra. They work very hard, accumulate money, and are satisfied to see that this money is plundered by their sons and grandsons. Such people do not want to return their wealth to its actual owner, and that's Krishna. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 5.29, Bhoktaram Yagyatam Prasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. The real proprietor of all wealth as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the actual enjoyer. So-called earners of money are those who simply know tricks by which they can take away God's money under the guise of business and industry. After accumulating this money, they enjoy seeing it plundered by their sons and grandsons. This is the materialistic way of life. In materialistic life, one is encaged within the body and deluded by false egoism. Thus, one thinks, I am this body, I am a human being, I am an American, I am an Indian. This bodily conception is due to false ego. Being deluded by false ego, one identifies himself with a certain family, nation, or community. In this way, one's attachment for the material world grows deeper and deeper. Thus, it becomes very difficult for the living entity to extricate himself from his entanglement. Such people are graphically described in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. 16th chapter, let's see, 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 16.13 to 15, in this way. And therefore it says, the demoniac person thinks, so much wealth I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future, more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemy will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the richest man, surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices. I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance. Wow, that's a real indictment of ignorance. In this way, people engage in various laborious activities, and their attachment for body, home, family, nation, and community becomes more and more deep rooted. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I think we'll stop there. Any more, we'll all faint. Hearing about how much we are entrapped by Maya. Yeah. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Are there any questions or comments? Any questions or comments?
Just a comment, Maharaj. It's a huge information.
Yeah.
About how a material person is
It's entangled.
In so many ways.
Yeah. Well, he explains here, it says, his bodily conception is due to false ego. Being deluded by false ego, one identifies himself with a certain family, nation, or community. In this way, one's attachment for the material world grows deeper and deeper. Thus, it becomes very difficult for the living entity to extricate himself from this entanglement. Such people are graphically described in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 16.13-15, in this way. The demoniac person thinks, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemy will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the richest man, surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices. I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance. So this is called I. In this way, people are engaged in various laborious activities and their attachments for body, home, family, nation, and community becomes more and more deep rooted. Honeyball. How can you get these uh, deep rooted let's say entanglements free? It's impossible almost. Okay, I think we'll stop there. Are there any questions or comments? Any questions or comments?
Hi Krishna, Harivilas Maharaj. I have a comment. The self care and I is very much focused in today's modern world. In regards to Krishna consciousness, how can we be away from that kind of thinking?
Well, it's by associating with genuine devotees who follow the regulative principles and who are not, let's say, sense gratifiers, who actually control their senses. And so, in this purport, chapter 16, verses 13 to 15, well, it says, Ishwaroham ahambogi sidoham balavan sukhi. The demoniac person thinks, so much wealth I do have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine, and it will increase in the future more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemy will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am the enjoyer, and I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the richest man, surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices, I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance. Well, we have to hear this and then ponder it or think about it very deeply so that we don't waste our time in sense gratification and always being uh, duped by false ego and false friendships and false activities until we come to the moment of death where we realize, oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen to me. I wasted my whole life in mundane activities, and now I'm confused and I don't know what's going to happen next. You don't want to be in that situation. You really want to be enlightened spiritually, and all these purports and all these verses, and but especially purports by Prabhupada, are enlightening us of the reality of the existence and material life and the pitfalls that there are and how to get out of those situations that keeps us indulged in sense gratification, life after life. Prabhupada explains the materialistic way of life. He says, in materialistic life, one is encaged within the body and deluded by false egoism. Thus one thinks, I am this body, I am a human being, I am an American, I am an Indian. This bodily conception is due to false ego. Being deluded by false ego, one identifies himself with a certain family, nation, or community. In this way, one's attachment for the material world grows deeper and deeper. Thus, it becomes very difficult for the living entity to extricate himself from this entanglement. Such people are graphically described in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 16.13-15. And it says, the demoniac person thinks, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So much is mine now, and it will increase in the future more and more. He is my enemy, and I have killed him, and my other enemy will also be killed. I am the Lord of everything. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the richest man, surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices, I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance. This is Elon Musk and also his buddy, Mr. What's his name? Trump. Yeah. Trump and Musk. Now they're arguing with each other and they're angry. They were friends and now they're enemies. See, that's what happens when you have too much money. You go from friendship to enemyship. That's why it says Ishwaroham aham bogi siddhoham balavan sukhi. This is poetry. It says, I am the Lord of everything. I am the enjoyer. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. I am the richest man, surrounded by aristocratic relatives. There is none so powerful and happy as I am. I shall perform sacrifices. I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. In this way, such persons are deluded by ignorance. Okay, my dear devotees, I don't want to scare you anymore. I think today we're getting a brainwashing. Most of the time people get body washing, but today is real brainwashing. But not brain damaging, but washing all false concepts and that lead to dead ends. It's just like building a uh, building a bridge that goes nowhere. Haribol. Thank you very much, my dear devotees. If you have any comments, you can say it now. Or any questions. Okay, thank you, my dear devotees. Please chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and be